everybody. It's great to be here with you in Hamburg. I have been doing a little German tour, so I spoke at Product at Heart last week, and now I'm here to talk to you all about product management. So today, I want to talk to you about this thing called the build trap, and I'm going to explain what it is. But the reason I want to talk to you, too, as developers, is to explain a little bit about what good product management looks like, and hopefully encourage you to take a good part in that as well. What can you do to work better with product managers? What does good actually look like? And what should you demand from your product teams as well? So in order to tell you a little bit about this, I have to go back to when I started as a product manager. So about 15 years ago, I started off as a product manager in a company called Capital IQ, and we were a research and data platform for financial industries down on Wall Street. And when I came in, I didn't really know what product management was. I had been studying engineering in school. I was doing a little bit of coding. I did some design stuff. And when I met the head of database there, he said, "You can be a product manager." And I was like, "Cool. What is that?" And he said, "Well, your job here is to go to all the salespeople, figure out everything that we want to sell, mock it up into beautiful specification documents, and then ship it off to the engineers." And I said, "Okay." And I got to work. And I got really, really good at writing these specification documents with requirements. So good, in fact, that I found one from early days, and it was 21 pages to change your password. That's a little overkill, don't you think? But I was told that I was a fantastic product manager because my specs were so detailed, they were so fantastic, that I never had to talk to the engineers. And I thought, awesome, this is great. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I kept going as a product manager. I left to actually be a developer for a little bit in a bank, realized I hated it, and there's much better developers than me. Went back to product management at a startup. And when I got in there, we were working with some of the most fantastic developers I've ever worked with. One of our lead engineers wrote Doctrine, really smart people. And I started doing what I did before. I was brought in by the CTO of Capital IQ, who moved here, and he said, "Write me specification documents." I got to work, started writing all these specification documents for the back end, shipped it off to my engineers, and I waited, and I waited. And about 3 weeks later, they go, "Okay, you can go check it out now. We're finished building it." And I look at it, and I go, "Guys, this isn't what I specified at all. Like, what's going on here? Didn't you read my document? It was like 47 pages long. I had every little detail on there." And they go, "Oh, that thing? Yeah, I didn't read that." Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to go through 47 pages. I built what I want. So now I'm having a crisis, right? Because I was told I was a great product manager because of my specification documents, and now my engineers won't build them or read them. Right? And I'm going, "Come on, just read it." And they're like, "No, I don't care. I'll just build what I want." So we're fighting and we're fighting. And finally, one of the engineers on my team, his name was Jared, he goes, "Hey, I'm not just an engineer here, but I am also an Agile coach. And I came here to start trying to teach you guys Agile." This is back at 2010. "So let's try something new, right? Let's get rid of these documents. We're going to move to this thing called Agile. You're going to start to work on what you want to build and break them down into backlogs, and we'll start working well together." At this point, we all hated each other. Nobody wanted to work together, and we said, anything's better than this. Right? Let's give it a shot. So we weren't really dogmatic about it. He just said, "Let's meet. Let's start discussing. You're in charge of the product backlog. You're going to play this role called the product owner. We're going to break down. We're going to discuss things, and we're going to start working in 2-week sprints." And that worked really well for us. I found out that I actually liked my engineers, and they found out that they liked me, and we started to really become a great team. We started getting things out the door faster. We started being able to understand how long it was going to take to do things. We started to really understand each other. And we thought that we were set. We were like, this is it. This is how we work well together. So because we became a really high-functioning team, the CEO and the CTO and the head of product started to give us more projects. So we got harder and harder projects. And one that they came to us with is building this dashboard. So we were on an e-commerce company, and what we did is we took celebrities, so people like Martha Stewart and Bobby Flay, and they picked out products that we would sell on our website. And at the time, we had a whole team of people managing these celebrities. There was no way for them to do this themselves. And the CEO said, "We can't scale if we do that. So I want you to really build a dashboard, build a way for these people to help manage their business, because they're making money off of us as well. We need to figure out how to scale." So we went out, I started talking to all these people, and I said, what do you need to see? And they were like, I need a bunch of revenue, I need to see my profit and loss, I need to see all the things I'm actually selling, what the cost is, what people are saying, all this stuff. And I took it all, and we broke it down into 2-week sprints, and we released this dashboard. And we were like, here, it's everything you ever wanted, right? We were telling everybody that was coming out, they were like, this is exciting, this is great, and we launched it. This was the first time that I ever put any analytics on a website before. So I put Google Analytics on, and I was really excited to watch people log in. And the first day, we got about 100 people logging in. We're like, yes, we got it. We had about 100 curators, so that was good. Second day, 50. A week later, nobody's logging in. 2 weeks later, nobody's logging in. Month later, no traction. And I'm going, what is going on? Right? Why are you not using this thing? You've been asking for it forever. Like, what's happening? So I called up the curators that I interviewed, and I said, hey, like, what's the matter? And they go, what is all this stuff? Right? You gave me all of these things, but it's not what I really need. So this is the second time I realized that I was in a crisis. And we were stuck in what I call the build trap, where we were building feature after feature after feature, using great processes to do it, but not really understanding what the customers actually wanted. We're taking their requests, but we're not figuring out what the real problem is. We're not really figuring out what we need to build. And a lot of companies get stuck in this mode, especially as they start to scale or if they get really big. And what happens here is that we focus on the amount of things we're releasing rather than what they do for our customers and for our business. So we need to figure out how to reorient out of this to really build great products. This is systemic. I see this in a lot of companies. And some companies do get out of it quickly, and then they become successful, and others get stuck for a very long time. But before we can figure out how to get out of it, we have to ask ourselves, how do we get here? Right? How do we get into this mode of building and building and building and not really stopping to think about if what we're building is good? So I think it comes down to this. A lot of companies misinterpret the fact that the more features they come up with, the more specification documents they write, right? The more ideas they have, and then the faster they can code, the more money they get. They think this is a linear equation, right? They think it's all about quantity here. And what happens is we turn to processes like Agile or other things to make that coding part go faster, right? Make your fingers go faster on keyboards. But we're not really looking at what's going into the pipeline, right? So what happens? We keep adding and adding and adding to this backlog, and then we never take away. And then all of our products become this hodgepodge of complexity. And what started as a copier and a scanner just turned into a stapler, and then they said, maybe it'll be magic. I mean, when was the last time you stood in front of one of these things and actually knew how to use it? Right? And that's why this is still relevant from 1999. So when we look at this, we have to come back and figure out, how did we all get here, right? What's that about? And I think Agile does have a part to play in this. I was at a conference quite a few years ago with Jeff Patton, who was an early Agile guy. We were sitting in the audience, and there was a CEO on stage. His name was David Cancel. He runs a very big startup out of Boston. And he goes, I'm not even going to talk about Agile. And there's 1,500 product managers in the audience, and they all start going, please talk about Agile. And he goes, okay, fine. I hate Agile. It's all points and velocity. Nobody cares about the customer. And 1,400 people stood up and applauded him. And I looked at Jeff and I said, I think we have a problem here. Right? For me, Agile wasn't like that. We found a way to work better together with my developers, with my designers, with our teams. But for other people, it wasn't like that. And what I found out working with a lot of companies, I've come into really large banks, I've come into a lot of scale-up organizations to help with product management for the last 10 years, is that a lot of people misunderstand what product ownership is and what Scrum is and why we're actually using it. And what they fail to recognize here is that Scrum doesn't have a brain. So many organizations go on these digital transformations or these agile transformations, and they expect Scrum to solve all their problems. They say, if we just do this, we're going to build great products. So what do? They take a lot of people internally, and they say, ta-da, you're a product owner, go do things. And we teach them about backlogs, we teach them about working with developers, but what we don't do is teach them about what goes into that backlog. How do we figure out what's the right backlog to build? How do we actually test those things first to make sure what we're building is the right thing to build? So many organizations have come to product management this way. And what they're failing to recognize here is that the product owner is a role that you play on a Scrum team, but the product manager is the job. Take Scrum away. Go to Kanban, right? Go to anything else. Are you not a product manager? Is that role not needed? No, it's still needed. We still need to figure out how we deliver value. So we want to go back to what product management really means at the end of the day. What does it mean? It's a value exchange. So on one side, we've got customers, and on the other side, we have businesses. And what we're doing here is learning about the customer's problem, wants, and needs. So our business ships products and services to solve those problems, those wants, and those needs. But it's not until they're solved and they go away that a customer realizes value. There is no value inherent in just products and services themselves. It has to solve a problem. Once it solves that problem, they give us money in exchange, or they give us data, whatever kind of currency your company runs on, and that's how we get our business value. So what the job is here is really trying to figure out how do we maximize the value for our customers and our business through the right products and services. It's not just about the quantity that we put out there. So organizations really need to remember here that solving big problems for customers is what creates big value for businesses. We need to remember that as we keep building our products. So in order to do that, we have to look at how do we build our product organizations and how do we set them up for success. And there's a couple components here that we need. One is a great strategy that aligns this value and the company value back down to what we're building. Another one is the process. What are we doing to actually learn about our customers to build the right thing? And the last one is setting up an organization so that we're successful here. Now, the first one I like to start with is strategy, because this is where I see so many companies get it wrong. So what is good strategy? I want to tell you a story about a company that I was working with. So this company, very similar to HelloFresh in the United States, had a meal kit delivery company where you ship the ingredients and recipes to people's doors, they open up the package, they can cook a very healthy meal. And when I came in, our goal was really clear. It was trying to increase our acquisition of customers to help grow. So we're trying to prime that engine, get more people in. Retention was great. We needed to grow this company. And it had been doing pretty well so far. So we had a problem where we saw that signups had plummeted a little bit. And we're trying to figure out what was going on. And we're trying to figure out also how to get in touch with the customers coming to the front end of our site to do that. And at the time, we had a new CTO walk in who came from Amazon. And he said, he came to my meeting, barged in, which I wasn't happy about, sat down, and as we're explaining and trying to figure out what to do, what experiment to run, he goes, whoa, 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 what is your product strategy? I'm like, what do you mean? We're talking about how we can figure out what the problem is here so that we know how to solve it. And he goes, no, 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 no. I want a document with every field you intend to put on the site and a content strategy so I can build this back-end CMS thing, and I need to go put all the developers around that. He didn't want a strategy. What he was looking for here is a plan. And this is what most companies think product strategies are. I see them become these like wish lists of all the features that we wish we could build. And then what we do is we shove them into these roadmaps that are Gantt charts, right? And then we just kind of predict when things will come out. Not that any of that is ever on time, because we don't do anything to really research what we're building. So what happens is when we look at this process of building products, what we're doing is failing to recognize the uncertainty. And creating new products is full of uncertainty. There's all these questions you need to answer, right? What is the problem for my customer? Who are my customers? Sometimes we don't even know that. Who are my customers? Why are they using us? Why are they using us instead of competitors? What doesn't work in their current solutions? What are they looking for? We have to answer all of these questions and figure out what it is to build before we actually commit to building those things. So a product strategy is not a plan. It can't be a plan. It has to be something else. It has to be a framework. So this is the best definition that I've seen on what strategy is. And it's from a guy named Stephen Bungay, who wrote a book called The Art of Action on strategy. Fantastic book. Totally recommend it. And it's not just about tech, it's about strategy in general. And what he says is strategy is a deployable decision-making framework, enabling action to achieve desired outcomes, constrained by current capabilities, coherently aligned to the existing context. That is a mouthful, but what it says here is that it's deployable. I can communicate it to other people, and they can make decisions with it. If If I communicate a strategy and people can't make decisions, it's not a strategy, right? It enables action to achieve desired outcomes. So we've got the outcomes and the goals aligned there. And when I receive the strategy, when I understand it, I'm allowed to act, right? It gives me something to go on, it gives me direction. It's constrained by current capabilities. We can only do what we can do, right? It's about our current tech, our current people. We have to figure out what we can do now versus what we have to add to go later. And then it's coherently aligned to existing context. It's not jumping 20 years ahead. We're still looking at the future, but it's helping us figure out how do we go from here to there. So that's what a good strategy really looks like. And when we talk about it in product development, it looks something like this in organizations. On the top in the white is our company strategy. And what we need here is, where is the vision for our company going? What do we want to be in 5 to 10 years? What's our value for customers? What's our position in the market? What does our business look like? And this is set by CEO and senior leadership, right? So our C-suite's doing this. CTOs as well. They should be a big part of this. Then we're setting strategic intents. And the strategic intents here are, what challenges are we solving from a business perspective to reach that vision? So are we going to go upmarket into the enterprise? Are we going to expand geographically? Are we going to solve problems for new types of users? All of these are business decisions about how we grow and what we want to be. And again, senior leadership, business leads, C-suite, heads of product, head of engineering, they should all be collaborating around that. Now we look at our product portfolio and we say, what do we do with our software to reach those goals? What needs to happen? What problems can we solve for our users? What can we do to actually grow into these strategic intents? It helps us prioritize. And then the teams come up with the options. These are our solutions. What should we build? What's the nitty-gritty problems we should be solving? What we're doing here is providing context, and then we're allowing them to go out and figure out how to solve it. So with a structure like this, what we're really doing is providing these middle pieces that connect a business strategy back down to a product strategy. Without them, it's really hard to focus your teams. So when that CTO came to us and said, what is your product strategy? We didn't just go build that CMS. What we did is we stepped back and we started to figure out how we were going to align towards it. So the company had just done a bunch of work on how they were going to differentiate from places like HelloFresh and other meal kit delivery companies. It was all a free-for-all back then. And what we did is we said, in 5 years, our company will be the meal kit with the most choices and the convenience in the market. So 2 differentiators there, right? The most choices and convenience. Those were the 2 things we were going to double down on. That's how we positioned ourselves. Our strategic intent was to double acquisition of new customers and maintain retention by the end of 2016. So this is looking at a year in advance. So now that we have that, we have to go figure out how to do it. That's what the team's responsibility was. So here, leaders provide the vision, the goals, and the guardrails. So what we were doing here is saying, I want you to go after this positioning. I want you to focus on acquisition. This is how you should be building it. But there were guardrails. They said, don't change the price. That'll screw with our margins, right? So don't just go and offer a bunch of discounts. Really figure out what the problem is we're solving for users, what the value is there. So that's what we need to do. And by doing that, what we're doing is promoting alignment. So when we connect these dots in an organization, especially with the leaders back to the teams, we're aligning everybody and moving them in the same direction. And when we don't do that, what I see frequently in a lot of organizations is that teams are all going in motion, but they're not going anywhere. And leaders are complaining that no outcomes are coming out of it. We didn't increase our revenue. We didn't increase our retention. And they start blaming the teams. And it's usually because there's no alignment. So to escape the build trap, we need to drive high alignment through a good strategy framework that allows teams to make decisions. That's how we enable the teams. It's not just about bubbling strategy up from the teams. It's about giving them the direction of what we would like to see, how we want to grow. So that's a two-way street that comes here. But you can't just set this in isolation. It takes a lot of work. So product strategy emerges from experimentation. We need to go out there and learn what our customers want before we can commit to solving it. And this is where process comes into play. So back at the organization, we had a lot of ideas about why we were not acquiring people as much as we wanted to. And we're sitting around with a big team. We had designers, developers, everybody there, CEO. And people were saying, oh, the price is too high. We should lower it. But again, a guardrail, right? If we do that, we lose money. So we got to figure out how to actually work within our margins. We had a lot of suggestions about the photos not being enticing enough. There was a picture of a steak, And everybody thought that the steak was just throwing everybody off. We're like, but what about vegetarians? So everybody thought that picture of the steak that they were coming to the website and seeing was not good. So we said we can A/B test that. Like, we'll figure out the photo thing. We should be offering sign-up gifts. The head of marketing really, really wanted to put chef's knives in the boxes, like a free knife. I said, that sounds a little dangerous. Maybe we don't just put knives in boxes. Like, let's figure this out. What are we actually trying to solve here? We had a lot, too, about rebranding the sign-up funnel, and they can't try it for free. But the problem with all of these things is that they're solutions, and we still do not understand the problem. We do not know where things are breaking. So we had to go back and start to analyze our conversion funnel. And what we did is we started to track where people were coming in. And we found out that a lot of people were coming to the site. So it wasn't an awareness problem. People knew about us. But once they got there, they'd take a step where they understood the price. They say, OK, choose their box. They go to this next step where they have to enter their address to get it shipped to. And that's where everybody fell off, way before they paid. And we're like, what? Why are people falling off on the address page? They know the price. That's typically where people fall off. I had come from e-commerce, so I knew the patterns here. But why are they not making it past this page? And what we realized is if we could figure out that question and we could improve our conversion, we would be able to reach our goal. So our product initiative started out as increase the conversion rate across all the platforms by a certain percentage by the end of Q2. But it wasn't done yet. We weren't done fleshing it out because we had to figure out how, what kind of direction, what kind of problem are we solving here. So our first obstacle as a team was we don't understand why people are leaving. And it was really hard to figure that out because we had a lot of people coming to the site but not giving us any information on how to contact them. So we were like, OK, let's ask for their email address. Conversion plummeted. We're like, OK, let's not ask for email addresses. Let's take that away, right? How do we figure out where they are? Now, at the time, we didn't have a lot of really great tools for it, but there was this new tool called Qualaroo. And my developer came to me and he said, hey, Melissa, there's this new thing where I could put a little bit of JavaScript on the page, and as people go towards the back button or to the X, it'll say, what's stopping you from signing up? This was new at the time. I was like, that's really cool. Let's slap it on the page and figure it out. It's like, yeah, it'll take me like 5 minutes. So we put it on there. And at first I was like, maybe we should ask a multiple choice question. I don't know if people want to write an answer. He's like, I could change it whenever. OK, fine, put it up there. Within 1 week, we had 2,500 responses. Within a month, we had like 10,000 responses. And nobody said they wanted a chef's knife. What they said is, I cannot find your food menu. Where the hell is it? Right? What am I getting to eat? And there was a food menu on there. So I was surprised. I was like, how are people not finding this? Can't find your food menu. They also said, what comes in the box? I've never done a meal kit before. What am I getting? Do I have to buy eggs? Do I have to buy like something else? Or is it all in there? Some people said the price is too high, but because we left it open-ended, they described it in a way that wasn't just, oh, you're too expensive. They said, I don't know why you cost more than your competitors. And there were reasons, but they did not understand them. Right? So this gave us an opportunity to actually explain the value. So we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, what this all boils down to is that we need to create a clearer experience for our customers to increase our conversion rate. They don't know what they're buying. They don't understand what we're actually selling here. If we can help them understand why they need it, obviously they're interested in meal kits, and understand how it works, we think we can increase it. So we tackled our next obstacle. People can't find the menu. So 33% of people responded that they can't find the food. It's on the site. Where is it? Why is this not working? Well, we had just gone through a major redesign of the site where a graphic designer made it all flat design back in the day. Anybody remember flat design? It was a big rage. And what happened is they wanted to simplify everything, and then they put everything under a hamburger menu. And only 3% of people clicked on that hamburger menu, and that is where the menu lied. So we ran an experiment. I said, if we can break out that menu, and we didn't have many pages, but let's break it out and put it on the top, and let's A/B test it and see if it increases conversion. So we pulled up the menu, we pulled out frequently asked questions, help. It took us like a week to run this. And what we found is that conversion rate skyrocketed. As soon as people found the menu, they were like, oh, OK, I understand what the food is. That's really what I wanted. We weren't quite to our goal yet, but we were on our way. So by running this experiment, we knew we were on the right path to getting to the acquisition goals we wanted to. So we broke down the rest. We started iterating on it, releasing piece by piece to make the website experience better. We broke it down into all those issues that they were looking for, and we were able to reach our goals. So those solutions that we worked on, or options, became the expanded navigation and then the better explanations in each categories of those pages to tackle those problems. So by doing that, they were able to increase their acquisition. They were able to be acquired by a big grocery store in the United States, so it was a very nice exit for them. And they went on to be assimilated into that and find a lot of success. So to escape the build trap, we need to use the right processes at the right time. Had I just gone and specified all those things for the CTO, we never would have learned. We never would have known what's wrong. We tried a little bit of A/B testing around photos. It was not moving the needle. But by taking a couple steps back and really focusing on the problem, we were able to use the right processes at the right time and solve our problems. And I see a lot of organizations get into this trap, where when you're learning product management or you're coming to it for the first time, we got a lot of people really excited about tools. So it'll be like, prototype all the things, right? Let's just build prototypes. At one organization I was working at, I was training all the product managers, and one of the newer product managers came to me and he said, Melissa, I'm going to build about 32 prototypes and show them to doctors. Can you help me with that? And I was like, why are you building 32 prototypes? He goes, I'm just going to make them all different and they'll choose which one works. I said, have you gone and talked to the doctors and understand what the problem is? Nope. Okay, let's start there. Let's do some user research and build 2 prototypes and figure out where the answer is. What we need to remember here, though, is that tools are useless unless you use them correctly. It does not matter how shiny the tool is. It does not matter how shiny the framework is. But if you use it in the wrong context to solve a different problem, it's not going to work. So it's not just a silver bullet to have all of these tools. We have to figure out how to learn them. And this is why I teach people about Toyota Kata and what I call product kata. So product kata is a scientific, systematic way to build better products. It's based off Toyota Kata. Anybody hear of Toyota Kata before? A couple people? Yeah. So what this does is it really helps you figure out how to use the right thing at the right time. So it's the same format that we just went through with our food delivery kit, right? We started with that company goal. We tried to figure out what we were trying to increase, and that was our acquisition here. Then we stopped and we said, what are users doing now? That's our current state. What's it look like? Then we said, what can we solve to get to that first goal? Let's break it down a level, something attainable that we can get on our way to the bigger goal. And then we chose the right product process. We started with user research. We started with experiments. And then eventually you work your way up to releasing different versions of a full product. And by doing this, what you're doing is taking a step back and really asking yourself, what are we working towards, right? And what's the right method to help solve the problem I'm currently facing? What should I be working on now? And what this does is it promotes learning. Learning is the only thing that reduces uncertainty in organizations, right? Learning is what helps us make a good bet. A lot of organizations like to talk about risk. Anybody work in like financial services or anything like that? FinTech? Any of these services? A couple. We like to talk about risk there in highly compliant organizations. It's risky to release the wrong thing. It's risky to take 2 years building the wrong thing. So what do we need to do? We need to learn as fast as possible. So we need an organization that really helps us do discovery about what our customers need and what problems they have and feed that into delivery. And we have to make this continuous. So in order to do that, that's our last piece of the puzzle, and it's setting up a great organization that really embraces this way of doing product management, this way of learning about our customers and reducing our risk. So let's go back and talk about our Agile for a moment. When everybody started complaining about Agile, probably like 10 years ago, I don't know, have anybody not complained about Agile? When they started with it, I was a little surprised because Agile worked really well for me. And I learned it from a first principles format. And the first principle of the Agile Manifesto is our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Satisfy the customer. So what happened to that when we look at Agile transformations and Agile today? How did we get to this point where we're not talking about the customer, and instead we're prioritizing whatever our internal stakeholders want, or whoever screams the loudest? How did we get to a place where we're not experimenting, We're just building whatever we can think of. How do we get to a place where we're focusing on our problems or our ideas internally, but not our customers' problems? How do we get stuck in this build trap? And I think what happened is that we focus more on doing the process right than building the right things. And I see this everywhere. And you want to ask why? Why do we do that? Because it's easy. It's so easy to say, hey, did you do your stand-up today? Check. It's harder to say, did you increase acquisition over the last year? How did that thing actually contribute to more usage of your product? All of these things are harder to measure. So instead, we go for output metrics when we really should be looking at outcomes. And that's how an organization builds for success. We focus on these outcomes. What are we doing to drive customer value? What's the outcome they're actually looking for? Not just what are we shipping to customers. What happens here, though, is a lot of times we don't do that because we build and we launch with no measures of success. So I keep asking people, how are you measuring success? Do you know that you've reached your goal? And they don't know. They don't know what their goal is. So everything just becomes this like conveyor belt. Just ship all these features. Get it out there, right? And we're not really looking at the success of our products. And I think this is interesting, too. So Jeff, I stole this from Jeff, and I do this in my workshops, too. He lets me, don't worry. Jeff has this interesting thing where in his workshops, he'll ask people, line up across the room. If your last product launch was wildly successful, go over there. And if it wasn't, go over there. And what happens is you start to see about 10% of people, 20% of people in the awful range, 20% of people in the awesome range. And we got like 60% of people in the valley of meh. I call it the valley of meh because they don't know. I have no idea if it was successful or not. You start to ask them, the awesome people, how do you know it was successful? It's like, well, we launched it, and we improved a metric. We hit it. It's like, great, you're measuring it. You ask about the awful ones, and they're like, nobody used it, almost got fired, it missed its date, everybody was unhappy. And then you ask the valley of meh, and they're going, I don't know. I didn't get fired, and it's out the door. But I have no idea if it's working. Okay, right? We're not sure. And what I've discovered in a lot of organizations is that for startups, right, failure is anything less than awesome, right? Because they don't have the money to keep iterating or to keep sustaining without it. But when you look at large organizations, success is anything except utter failure, and you didn't get fired. And that's because they have the money to keep trying things, right? They're doing well, they've got money, they've got cash, they can sustain stuff. It doesn't really matter if you put stuff out there and you don't measure success, because as long as it doesn't break everything, who cares? So a lot of big companies are not measuring success, they're not really looking at these things, they're just kind of crunching through. And then they get to a point where something goes wrong, or they realize they're spending too much money, and then they start to care. So what we really need to do, though, to help turn this around, is start to define these parts of the product strategy canvas, right? We have to start to define what success looks like at a company level, and then really focus on what problems we're solving and bridge that together, because that will allow the teams to actually see if they're successful or not either. And it allows the executives as well to tell if their strategies are working. So to escape the build trap, we need to create a product-led organization that has policies and practices needed to navigate uncertainty and make strategic decisions that lead to measurable success. When I say product-led, I do not mean product management-led. I mean that we're building and scaling through repeatable products, software products. We're not duplicating stuff all over the place. We're not just building in isolation over here in a bunch of spreadsheets, and then some team over there, like 10,000 miles away, is doing the same thing. We're really figuring out how do we deliver value to our customers in scalable ways, and we all need to contribute to that. So once we have an organization that's set up that way, and we have a strategy that helps bridge that gap between products and the company, and we have a process that allows us to experiment around that strategy, it really comes down to people. So escaping the build trap is getting the people aligned with where we need to go, right? It's really about making sure that we fundamentally understand why outcomes are important and why we should be delivering value for our users. So what can you do? It's hard to change an organization. I've tried. I work with some of the biggest companies in the world with their executive teams, and it's slow going. But there are ways that you can start And there's small things that you could do as developers as well to work better with your product managers or to encourage them to start thinking about these things. My number one piece of advice is to ask this question. Just ask this one little question. What do we expect to happen when we launch this? A lot of times people get frustrated when they hear about this and they want to go back and rip up everything they're working on and say, stop the presses. We can't release these things. And that makes people uncomfortable. That makes executives really mad. So instead of doing that, just ask why we're working on the things we're working on. What do we expect to change when we launch this? What metric? What's it going to do for our users? What is it going to do for our business? And be curious. I want to know. I want to write it down so I can measure it. I can help you understand, right? Be very open to that. It's a very great conversation starter because you might get answers back that go, hey, I don't know. And then you can start to figure out how to define it. Other ones might come back and they'll say, oh, yeah, that's retention related, or this is about increasing usage over here. Just keep asking why. It starts the conversation. My next piece of advice is to be curious about your customers. The best developers I have worked with have come to user interviews with me, and don't just go to one, try to go to at least 3. They've learned about the customers, but they have enough context now to make really great suggestions about the product. They're curious about the customers. They want to know what the journey's like, and they want to know what their pain points are so they can build better. And when we do that, we have some great conversations, and we can figure out what's going to work with them. So be curious about your customers. Ask about them. Try to learn about them as much as you can, because it will make you a better developer, but it will make it easier to work with your product managers as well and with your executives. The last part, too, is to empathize with your team. A lot of people get really frustrated at bad product management and bad product managers. The problem is a lot of organizations are not set up the way that I'm talking about, but they're getting there. There's been a huge shift over the last 10 years of organizations starting to embrace outcomes, starting to work their way up here. But it's really, really slow going. So if you are working with a product manager that feels like they don't know what they're doing or you're not really sure, have empathy, but talk to them. What challenges are you facing, right? What would you want to be able to do? Sometimes you do get junior, not great product managers. Sometimes those product managers are just working in systems that they can't change. If you are an ally, and if you're working with them, it's going to change the whole dynamic. And a lot of people are looking for that. They're looking for the understanding. They're looking for help to try to get people to change, try to get these organizations to change. So have the conversation, talk to them, right? Try to figure out what their life is like. Try to figure out what they're up against or why they can't do best practices, and see if you can chip away at it together. Because at the end of the day, it's extremely comfortable to stay in the build trap, because it's a known place. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of risk and a lot of standing up and saying, hey, I want to build better products to get us out of there. So thank you very much for listening. And if you want to read more about escaping the build trap, I do have a book. It's also in German on Amazon called Escaping the Build Trap. And you can grab the slides or connect with me here. And I think we have some time for questions, too.